So Marin and I met at the San Diego APLD conference and ended up doing a lot of walking together. That's what I remember. And I just had conversation after conversation. And I thought, what an impressive person and what an impressive enterprise that she's put together. And she made a big impression on me. The APLD conferences are really wonderful that way. You get to meet people that you might not ever run into and get to know them a bit. And all of us who've gotten into the profession have kind of walked a certain, trail together. The trail of small business was just what this forum's about. And we all have horticulture and gardens and making things beautiful in common too. So it's not real hard to make friends with people in the landscape profession. But I kind of latched on to Marin in particularly because, you know, Marin, you're of a different generation. You're probably younger than my children, for heaven's sakes. And when I heard about what you guys had done in building up your business, I was just so impressed. And I was, dying to learn more about what you were doing. So I took the pictures you sent me, and I also went onto your website and I just pulled some pictures together to show folks some of the work that your company does. It's just so impressive and so fun. Um, Marin's in Salt Lake City. I'm gonna ask her a bunch of questions. You won't have to have me tell you about her all that much because she's just here with us. But I actually did a bunch of work in Salt Lake City myself, not as a landscaper, but I worked on a citywide water-wise gardening website, and I was required to come in and photograph gardens in Salt Lake City, both in the fall and in the spring. And so I kind of got to know the city pretty well. One of the things that was unusual, just demographically about Salt Lake City, it's has this super unique demographic. I was told, when we were doing water conservation coordination, that there were really two very different audiences that I had to address. One was the Mormon community on the one hand, and the other was the um, outdoor enthusiast. In other words, there was a lot of people in Salt Lake City that had moved there because of the beauty of the place, the skiing, the backpacking, the mountains being surrounding the city. And so we kind of had to create a website that was appealing to these two different audiences. And I had to learn a lot about the Mormon community. I had a chance to go on the roof of the administration building where there was a 3-acre rooftop garden, which was one of the most amazing acts of horticulture that I've seen anywhere in the United States. That was really a privilege to go up there and see it. And the landscape architect that oversees the properties in Salt Lake City took me around town to show us work that they had done. And water conservation coordinator hooked me up with a number of designers in Salt Lake City. And I was just amazed. It's a real horticultural town, even though it's in the high desert, which is one of the more challenging environments, I think, to do landscape design that I can think of. We have a high desert here in California as well, and I'm aware of the challenges there. I couldn't believe the terrace project and the complication of this one, Marin. Good God. Obviously, the photographs were taken shortly after the installation because the plants all looked like young, but I couldn't help but want to show everybody the intricacy of some of the terracing that was done in this job.
Yeah, this one was actually they do this fun thing here called the Parade of Homes. So
Yeah.
builders will build a home, showcase it, and then thousands of people will come through and tour the homes. And this was one of three parade homes that we did last year.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, those walls, they are actually made out of foam. So
No
it's like,
kidding.
yeah, it was totally new to us, but they turned out stunning.
Yeah. An amazing project. And I saw that some of the projects there's a lot of variety. I mean, we're not here to talk about designing. There's other venues to do that. But I want people to see why I chose you to talk to, because the work you guys do is just stunning. Um, but some of the vistas that are available are unbelievable, and I thought it was really wonderful how you guys do so much to kind of bring the great outdoors into the garden. It's pretty cool. And these little vignettes like these walkways. I noticed I saw this in New Mexico too when I was doing photographs for another water-wise gardening project, is these raised planters made out of steel boxes. That's what this is, isn't it?
It's a powder coated aluminum.
Powder coated aluminum.
Mhm.
Yeah. So there you are.
Thank you, Jerry. That was a fun surprise.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I appreciate your coming on. Okay, let me get all this stuff out of the way. All right. So, your company and how you got started and all that. Let's turn the focus on small business management and how you got started. First of all, I think you're in a partnership, correct?
Correct.
Tell me about that because that's an interesting dynamic that we haven't talked about yet.
Yeah, so I can't take all the credit for these projects. In fact, most of them should go to my business partner, Chelsea. And we met actually at a design build company here in Utah. So she was actually my boss, hired me on, and we worked together for several years at this design build until we decided to jump off and create Threadleaf and kind of do our own thing. So we had experience working together, knew we worked well together, had similar goals and visions for kind of what we wanted to do next. And so yeah, it took a little bit of convincing just to she was kind of pie in the sky, wanted to do all these sorts of different things. It took a little convincing to say, hey, no, let's do this together. It could be really great. And now here we are about 3.5 years later.
Yeah. Did you have a lot of trepidations about breaking away from the comforts of being employed by someone else?
Of course, yeah, that's always a scary risk, a scary leap of faith, I should say.
Yeah.
It when it's all on you and it's all on your own. But I would say having a partner made it a lot easier to have someone that you can rely on and that you don't feel like you're in it alone. I feel like that's one of the things about being a designer that owns your own business is it can feel very, very lonely. And I can talk more to kind of our business model and structure is a little different and addresses that as well. Um, because we actually contract for our drafting work through freelance designers. I don't know if I'd mentioned that to you, Jerry, or not,
No.
but
No.
that is kind of the community we're building. And you had a question in here about why we decided to create our own company. And really what it came down to was there was a hole in our industry, at least here in Utah, where we were losing so much amazing talent because they couldn't do the 9 to 5 typical job. And as we know in our industry, in busy season, that can be more like 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., right? It can be very demanding at times. Um, and so we not only wanted to carve out a space for ourselves, but also for these people that we were coming in contact with that just were having to leave the industry. They had amazing talent and experience, but they just couldn't fit the mold of, working for a company. So how we've structured things is we contract with multiple freelance designers. Some of them are here in our state, some of them are not. But they really partner with us on projects and help us like I said, draft things up and get a design ready to present to the client.
So you have in addition to your Threadleaf, you have some a community of designers that you also collaborate with. How does that work in terms of revenue for your company? How do you get financial benefit from that association?
Yeah, so it's again a little bit different in that we can take on a lot more projects due to that because we have them really focusing on that draft work for us, we are able to take on additional clients instead of us taking on clients and then having to do all that drafting as well. So it really expands the amount of projects we are able to take on, and gives us some good variety too. Like we want to make sure that if there are certain designers or freelancers we're using for a project, that they are a good fit for that project. So we're able to take on not only what we think we're personally good at, but what we know we have talent for from these designers as well. So it's kind of fun to be able to have a range of projects just because of that, just because of that collaboration piece. And I feel like that's really our why. This is why we do that, is to help supply these freelance designers with projects that they enjoy and that they're good at, and really form a relationship with them that way.
So do you take a percentage of that design fee as part of your service here? Is that how that works?
Yeah, so we contract through the client, and then we pay our freelance designers kind of as subcontractors. So
Got it.
they're
So
a
you hold the
1099.
contract with the client.
Correct. Yep.
Interesting.
Mhm.
And I presume that makes you go farther afield than just locally where your company's located. Are you
Yeah.
throughout northern Utah in general for that reason?
Yeah, and we've even done some projects out of state as well, just to kind of depending on if we feel like we have talent in the area and what information we've been given. But yeah, we're able to kind of expand again how many projects we take on, and kind of the area that we take those on. And we are still a little picky about how far we're willing to travel. My business partner and I are still the ones meeting with the clients. So we are client facing. Those designers that I talked about, that subcontract, they never talk to the client, usually never even see the site at all, but we are the ones who have to, make those visits.
So you must have to accumulate quite a bit of information before you get to this design, these outside designers with all of your insights as to what the design intent is intended to be, what the customer needs and wants, the use of the spaces. So you must have a formula for this, I suspect at this point.
Yeah, we've kind of got a running system in terms of the communication. We use a couple different ways to do that, but I will say it is always super helpful to just record our conversations with the client. And I know we've talked about that in previous business forums, but having that recorded conversation is super, super helpful for us to kind of translate all that information that we talked about to these other people, right? And whether that's them actually listening to our recording, but a lot of the time it's just us taking the transcript and using AI or boiling it down enough that it like gives them the knowledge that they need to be able to work on the project efficiently.
You guys have really leveraged technology a lot in your business, haven't you? I noticed that you
Yes.
had uh, aerial shots, probably from drones. You had use of photo simulation in some of your portfolio materials. Tell me about how you've, when you guys kind of got together, you and Chelsea, was that part of the scheme is to try and leverage as much good technology as you can get your hands on?
In the very beginning, I don't know that it was. We were just, how it is. You're figuring out how to run a business, and that can be a lot. But I think over time, it did evolve into that, and that we saw that we had certain things available to us, or certain skill sets that weren't being used in our industry that we felt like we could leverage. I will, again, give most of the credit to my business partner in terms of the AI side of things. We have leveraged a lot of that, and she is one of those who's just really honed in on that, taken advantage and implemented it in our business to make things pretty seamless and automatic, especially when it comes to that communication piece that you talked about. Making sure that everybody sees the same thing across the board and that it automatically gets pushed through for us is really key. But it also helps, those connections with those other designers. We have been able to leverage their use of technology as well. So people who do really beautiful 3D renderings and make it almost look real, being able to find those people and leverage them on key projects that we know the client will need and or want something like that has been really helpful.
Well, one of the technology pieces that I think is obvious to all of us that's critical in running a small business is the website. And
Mhm.
I've looked at a lot of them over the years for a whole bunch of reasons. Yours is very impressive. So Threadleaf landscape design, if you just do a search on that, you can pull it up. You
Mhm.
put a lot of energy into it. Tell me about how significant that's been towards marketing your new business.
Yeah, so I think this is one of the things we got right from the very, very beginning, and it was super helpful to propel our business forward. What we did, even before we had Threadleaf created, is we partnered with um, someone who does marketing, and he had done it for various landscape companies in our area, or not even in our area, but even in the United States. We had actually worked with him at our previous design build company. So we met with him and he walked us through, okay, we need to talk about your vision, your why, and talk about your brand and what you are really wanting to create. And having that all in place first thing was so helpful to kind of guide. We even had a brand story that told our story, and we've been able to leverage that on the website, right, as just uh, script on the website and stuff like that. So I, yeah, couldn't. If we did one thing right, it was that is just starting with the brand and focusing on our why and what we wanted to portray that way.
How did you find help in that? I mean, it's one thing to find a web designer. It's another one to find someone who's got marketing savvy. Did you find someone who had both when you were working on the
Yes.
website? And how
Yes.
did you go about selecting that person?
Oh, well, like I said, we had worked with him previously at our previous design build company.
Ah, of
So that's
course.
how we had, and he had worked with us to also help elevate that brand that we had been working with that company. So, and I will say he didn't actually do the whole website. He gave us a reference for someone else who built that out for us, but he had created um, basically an outline of what our company was, and someone just had to kind of plug and play with that.
Right. I think there's a little bit of an assumption that we're since we're all designers that we can design our own websites. And having a software company that's involved with this and being a horticulturist and not a web designer myself and having a daughter who's a graphic designer and a marketing person, I've seen what a difference it makes when you let go a little bit. Because I think as designers, we figure we can design any and everything, but creating a really good website is challenging. It's really, really challenging. You know, the other thing I'd say about it too, and I wonder if this is true in your case, unlike other things that we do, a website is super malleable. Like if you do something this week and you evaluate it 5 weeks later and say, you know, we could do better if we did this. I mean, I find that websites need kind of like gardens do, perpetual improvement. Has that been the case with your website?
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, I'm still in the process of doing that. It was kind of on the list for this year. There's a couple pages where I really wanted to improve the photos. There were still like stock photos from when we originally started it. I'm really proud and redid our portfolio page and want to add a few more projects to that. But yeah, keeping up on your website is definitely key because our industry or our profession is so visual. And so what you present
Yes.
visually is a reflection of what you're going to have to offer the client.
Yeah. Do you think that website has been the reason why you've been able to grow as fast as you have and be able to connect with other designers and become so busy that you couldn't design all the jobs that were coming your way?
I think it's a key piece of it. I will say we get the majority of our, excuse me, the majority of our leads come through our website. I'm sorry, I got something in my throat.
It's all right. Get some water if you need to. We're all friends here.
It's good. Um, yeah, so the majority of our leads come through our website, but I would say some of those key relationship pieces really happened between other industry professionals like contractors, interior designers, architects. That has been that lead source, I guess, has given us the most value. Like we've seen the most valuable jobs come from that. So while we do get a bulk amount of leads from our website, you have to filter those out, and that's kind of
Right.
annoying and takes time and effort. But so I'd say it's a combo of the website and those relationships with other industry professionals.
Yeah. It's always seemed to me over the years that in the end, well, I mean, once a company gets up and running, it's the referrals
Hmm.
that really are building the business. I've often felt that the very best, and we mentioned this maybe in a previous meeting, one of the best forms of advertisement is the job you're currently working on. Like when it's going through its transformation, that creates a buzz in that neighborhood. And as people see things go from ugly to beautiful, they associate you with that transformation, and then they want to know, well, what maybe could you do for me, sort of thing.
Hmm.
Have you found that to be the case where you work in one part of Salt Lake City, let's say, and you get a bunch of jobs nearby as a consequence?
Absolutely. Yeah, that is absolutely the case a lot of the time. And it's nice when the first client that you latch onto is a really good client, because then if they refer you, it's almost always, similar type personalities or clients, and it's really beautiful to have leads come to you that way so easily.
Do you put out signage while you're working while things are happening there?
We don't, Jerry, and we should. We have had our We have had our names, like I said, on those parade homes. Like we've had
Right.
our like we have a little plaque and some cards and stuff like that. But that is one way to do it, and I think we're missing out since aren't doing that.
No, you're not installing, you're not design build.
Nope,
Okay,
nope.
so you must have what I call confederacies of contractors you'd like to work with. Is that the case?
Yep.
Um, how did you build those relationships and how did that get started? Because these seems to me the whole the excellence of a project is only as good as those relationships with other people that are going to install. So
Mhm.
how did that work out for you guys?
Yeah, that has been really key, especially in the beginning. That's how a lot of our business came to us, was from contractors. And we found them mostly because we had just been in the industry previously and just had those working relationships. And then once we started our own thing, we could reach out and be like, hey, like we're ready to help you with whatever you need. We found there's a lot of contractors here who they're not interested in building their own like design department. They really just want to outsource that. And so we tried to make it as easy as possible for them. Um, and then, over time, it became this mutually beneficial relationship where we would send clients to them to get the install, but they would also send their clients to us. So kind of this beautiful back and forth. But a lot of it just came from being in the industry and going to conferences and knowing people's um, kind of repertoire and who we thought would partner best with us.
Right. Now, have you had any trip ups along the way? Contractors that things did not work out with and what happened and why?
Yeah, we had one contractor. He was giving us a lot of work, and we liked working with him. But then he took a job with the company that we had just left. So that kind of muddied the waters, and we just decided, we're gonna break clean of that and not go down that road. So that was a real hard reality for us, that like we were really dependent on some of our contractors for work, we realized. That one, and then another one, they had a buyout, and the owners kind of changed, and we were kind of in limbo about what was gonna happen between our relationship with them, and it ended up being okay. But sometimes if you rely too heavily on those relationships, it can be a little scary if something happens and for some reason they're not bringing you work anymore.
Hmm. Let me circle back to your first year, because I think for everybody that starts a small business, that's the most harrowing one. And I think a lot of people who like to tune into what we're doing with a business forum are either trying to improve on what they're already doing or they're just getting started too. And
Mhm.
I do realize too, and you know this, almost everybody who gets into this business are not people fresh out of high school or fresh out of college even. Often we're all career changers in one form or another. So, but I think transitioning from, full-time employment with somebody else into having your own company, that first year is a little bit like walking the plank. Could you share with us some of your experiences in that first year and what some of the main challenges were?
Yeah, to be totally honest, the first year I had a almost total mental breakdown. It was a lot. And luckily I have my partner to help, again, be someone that has your back and is there for you. But I felt like that first year I was trying to do it all and I was trying to be so good at everything that I did. And if I couldn't be so good at it, I felt like I was failing. So it was just, and you were making so many key decisions in the beginning. That first year, you're kind of you're building the bases, and it feels like if you get it wrong, like, oh no, like every decision just feels so heavy and weighty. So I would say if I was to give any advice for those starting up, it would be capitalize on your strengths. If there's something you're good at, lean into that, focus on that. And maybe there's going to be other parts of the business that you're not as good at, and that's okay. And you're going to learn, you're going to grow, and you'll kind of move past that. But I think for me in that first year, I was so focused on all the things that I couldn't do or didn't know how to do in terms of building a business.
It might be similar to raising children, right? Because when you have your first child, you don't have a clue on how to be a parent. I mean, you do. You read all these books and everything. I was married to a nurse who is very, very well prepared, but still, there's nothing that compares to the experience. Maybe marriage is like that too. Like you can't really explain marriage to someone who's never been married or explain parenthood to someone who's not been a parent. So there's a certain element of self-trust, don't you think? I mean,
Yes,
somewhere, somehow, you have to say, I think I'm capable of figuring out whatever problems come my way. And yeah, it's harrowing. Yeah, it's difficult, but I trust myself that I can figure things out. Do you think that's a critical attitude you got to have to do this?
absolutely. And I actually even so I'm a mom to two young kids, and when I jumped off to do my own thing, I just had a 1 year old.
Oh
So
my.
I was kind of learning my second kid, he was one and he was not a sleeper at night. And that was also compounding upon um building a business. But absolutely, you have to um you just have to believe and say, if I can't do it right now, I believe I can figure it out. Even if it's not happening right now, just that belief in yourself is really key.
Yeah. I think it's a I think it's a good life lesson in general, right? I mean, even if you weren't self-employed and not running a small business, I mean, life is hard. Raising a family is hard, you know, being a good citizen is hard, being a good person is hard. I mean, all of these things are challenges. But in the end, if we don't have some sort of internal confidence, things start to fall apart. And I think starting your own business really forces you to rely on yourself in ways that many other things don't do. So I've always, I fell in love with the idea of self-reliance when I was in
Mhm.
high school. You guys know Emerson's essay, Self-Reliance? If you don't read it, if you want to get inspired, he really that's kind of Emerson's main idea that within each person is all the strength and all the wisdom that you need if you trust yourself enough. But having the partner probably also gives you have the synergy of figuring things out together, right?
hmm
And
And
that helped in the first year, I presume.
it did, but it also, and I think someone in the chat here was asking just about the partnership. It was also another tricky element to navigate, just because in the beginning, uh, we weren't playing upon our own strengths. We were both just kind of trying to make it work. And almost in the beginning, we built the foundation, but then we got to the point where we were almost just running our own separate businesses. Like she was taking on certain clients, I was taking on certain clients, and we weren't like specializing. Um, and I feel like probably year two is when we figured out, oh, um, you know, we should capitalize on the fact that I'm really good at the admin side and the marketing side and even some of the sales side of the business. And she's really good at the fulfillment on design and communication with designers and having those key relationships and keeping those current to be able to continually have that revenue from others. So that's when we kind of shifted. And in the beginning, uh, we were almost doing exact opposites of what we were really good at. And so it took some time to like figure out what the dynamics needed to be for us to be um, more effective and build a better business together.
Yeah, it's teamwork,
hmm
creating teamwork. So you were able to divide up the duties and responsibilities of the company into a manner that built synergy into your efforts, whereas before you were sorting that out. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, we were taking on different clients and almost running completely separate businesses because we weren't streamlining anything. We were both just doing it instead of coming together and saying, okay, let's build something that we can both work upon and streamline things and divvy up responsibilities in a way that makes more sense.
Yeah. Years ago, I went in Los Angeles to a business seminar for small businesses, and there's maybe several hundred people in this big seminar thing. And the first thing that the speaker said, he says, "How many of you are corporations?" And a certain number of people rose their hands. And he said, "That's good." He said, "Then how many of you are sole proprietors?" And then another group of people rose their hands. And then and the third thing he asked is, "How many of you are in partnerships?" And a really small number of people, myself included, rose our hand. He said, "All you guys are idiots." And I thought, why am I an idiot? Um, but what was, what I discovered is that often partnerships are very much a marriage between a couple of people. And the pressures on that relationship are intense. So if you don't have a really uh, strong trust in that other person, if you don't really have their best interest in mind as well as your own and your own families, it's really hard because money is involved. It is very much a marriage. Would you agree with that? The dynamics between the two partners is extra challenging.
It is, and that's why I think in the beginning when we came up with our why for our company, like why are we doing this? It's just an effort that we can both come back to and be um I guess aligned on where we're going and what we're trying to accomplish together and kind of having a greater purpose bigger than us and bigger than the revenue and stuff like that was really helpful just to guide our efforts a little bit. But yeah, I absolutely would say it's tough. It's a relationship and it's got stresses and pressures in different ways. But it's also someone who has your back and someone who's, uh, trusts deeply in you and your ability. And that's really reassuring as well.
Yeah, yeah. I found that I've been in five businesses, and each one of them was some form of a partnership. And the one I'm in now is with my children, my adult children. So I've got a family one. And I
Mhm.
remember my wife saying to me, "So now if you're going to do this, you got to promise me that you'll never fight with each other and you'll look after each other. All the things that, you're worried about with the other business partnerships I've been part of kind of ran their course, and we wanted to go do different things. So
Mhm.
it wasn't a divorce of sorts. It was just kind of parting of ways. But you
Mhm.
guys do you have like a 5-year plan, 10-year plan? Is that kind of how you've thought of it?
Yes, absolutely. And we both know that this is probably not going to be forever. It'll be something where we're gonna want to move on and do other things. And so we come to and evaluate, at year 5, we've got a point where we're gonna look at it again and go, okay, like, is this something we want to keep doing together? And we're trying to we toyed with the fact of trying to build it into something that potentially we could sell down the road. We're still working through what that could look like in the logistics there, but definitely having check marks for each is really helpful for each person in the relationship to know, hey, we're going to reevaluate at this point. Like, I'm not stuck in this, um, but if we want to keep going, and that's always an option as well.
Is there an exit clause? Some way that you guys can gracefully go your own ways if you ever should want to do so and do it in a manner that's not acrimonious?
Yeah, so it's been a while since I looked through. If anyone's considering a partnership, get an operating agreement, so a legal agreement between the two of you. That's going to help with a lot of things down the road. And I should say, my business partner and I have seen a lot of quote unquote divorces between business partners. In fact, the company that we worked for, to a brother and then an in-law, they were in on it together, and we were there and saw the divorce happen and how messy and how dicey that got. So we very much went in with our eyes wide open on this partnership, and having a an agreement between the two of us. It spells out, this is what happens if X, Y, and Z happens. This is what you were agreeing to. So that operating agreement, kind of set our minds at ease. Like I said, I haven't looked at it in a while, so if there's an exit strategy that you asked about, Jerry, I
Is it
would need
some
to
sort of
refresh
binding?
myself.
Is it a binding document of some sort? Did you have a lawyer involved? You
Yep.
did.
Hmm.
That's interesting. Yeah. It seemed to me in the world of business, and I want your opinion about this. In the world of business, I think whenever we're engaging in any activities with other people, having a beginning, middle, and an end, so that when you reach the end, you reevaluate and either repeat or move on, seems
Hmm.
to be the wise thing to do. When you have this open-ended, it's forever kind of notion in your mind, that seems rife with trouble. Do you think I'm right
Hmm.
about that?
I do. I think you're spot on.
Yeah, yeah. Um, even when you like hire people on, let's say that you had like a mason that you wanted to work with, and there's a certain amount of work you wanted to send their way, or something like that. Having beginning, middle, and an end to it has always been helped to protect us. Like things are starting to go south, and then we say, okay, well, we're not going to renew this arrangement. That this,
Hmm.
when it comes to its natural end, rather than being a divorce, it just finishes. Then you move on to something new. That's been good too. Um,
Jerry, I will jump in and say, contracts of all sorts. I know when you're first starting, that seems a little overwhelming. And for those that are here that are very seasoned, contracts are very important and key to your business. And I will say, I wish that's something besides outside of our operating agreement between the two of us. I wish we had gotten that in place a little sooner. Contracts between us and the client, contracts between us and the freelance designers that we subcontract out to, just stuff like that that really can set your mind at ease, and you're not, worried about the worst case scenario if something goes south.
right, right. It's a hard thing when you're first getting started because you have ideals and hopes and wishes. And then there's someone to turn around and say, well, now let's stop thinking that way and let's start thinking about worst case scenarios. And you go, I don't want to. I'm trying to build something wonderful. I don't want to think about the worst that could go wrong. But
Hmm.
but that is part of running a small business is you do have to have contingencies for when things do go wrong. And it's painful. And it's painful. That's what I found like really glad why I didn't become a lawyer because that was what my original intention was to be. Because it basically you spend your whole life in worst case scenarios. What's the worst that can go wrong here? But yeah, you don't want it to overwhelm the enthusiasm. That's the key thing. Maybe we should allow other people to chime in and ask you some questions too. Why don't, if you don't mind, I imagine there's some things in the chat which I haven't bothered to look at, but I much prefer to hear your voices. So if you did have something in the chat to ask Marin, let's do that now in the time we have remaining. Um, can you use your raise your hand or let's see, Heather, it looks like you've got something that you started with. Would you mind taking the floor and hearing from you?
Yeah, hi. So I had asked two questions, and one of them you did touch on, Marin, so thank you. That was about the partnership. Um, my other question was, oh yeah, I was just curious about your interactions with clients. So like, do you guys offer a free consultation to new clients? Like let's say they call you, do you go over and meet them in person? And do a walk around, and then sort of what sort of information are you hoping to gather when you meet the clients? Because then you take that information and give it back to your subcontractors. Um, and just like how many times do you meet with the client in person? Just looking for more details on that.
Yeah, good question.
Yeah, thanks, Heather. I will say from the very beginning, we always charged for our consultation. So anytime we're going out to the client to meet with the client, we do charge them a fee for that. We usually do have a phone call before that situation, so they have an idea of, a little more about us. We know a little more about their project. But if all sounds good, then we'll schedule that on-site consultation. And in the beginning, that was really, those consultations were really hard for me because I felt like I had to provide value to them immediately. Like I was so worried that I was not like they're paying for this and maybe I'm not giving them the value they need. And I think I overdid it a little in the beginning in terms of like I'd be sketching out kind of I have an iPad and I would have a property image like an aerial view and I would be sketching out for them and all these things. And as time has gone on, I've realized I am like they are having me out there because they believe I have professional experience. I don't need to prove myself on site to them. But what I do need to do and what you touched on is gather information. I need to be really good about the questions that I ask, how I ask them, the ideas that I throw out, and how those are received or not. And I feel like as long as the conversation is kept flowing that way, then at the end of the day, I have what I need and the clients feel heard. And that's the biggest thing is they want to build a relationship with you that has trust and being able to feel heard is so key to that relationship.
Hmm. I noticed that you did that even on the website. You made a big point of that. We're going to listen to you. We're not here to run roughshod over you. We're good listeners, sort of. I mean, that's a subliminal message that you're making, but it came through loud and clear to me, you know. And it's an interesting comment too, because I think, as I've mentioned, I think in our last meeting, I had worked with Debbie Snyder Brooks, who was an APLD member. She was kind of an adjunct to my construction company. And I found that my style of going into the field and telling people, oh, you could do this and you could do that, when she would ask lots of questions about the and kind of draw out the customer, was completely opposite from my own approach. And I learned that hers was far, far better. So yeah, I think that's well worth mentioning. Let's see, Jordan, and you don't have to have a question, you can have a comment too, that's fine. But Jordan, you had something that you wanted to talk about?
Yeah. So, so I started my company almost 2 years ago, and I found someone on Fiverr to help with that I subcontract to for design. So similar, but just on a much smaller scale. I'm curious. It's taken a while for like the processes and like how that all works to like get ironed out, and I'm curious if do you or your partner draw like how in depth of a sketch do you do? And then also like what technology do you use? Are you guys architects? Do you come from architecture backgrounds? Because, what I find is online, most of the subcontractors have very specific, niche technology that they work with. And I work with the most niche. I feel like I use Structure Studios, so
Mhm.
nobody knows how to use that software. So I'm trying to figure out how I can get somebody on board to do 2D documentation because that eats up so much of my time. So yeah.
Yeah, no, good points, Jordan. And that's exciting that you have someone helping you with that because it really does change your business completely.
Mhm.
I'm trying to remember what you first asked, the very first question. It was, oh, how much information we give them and if we sketch out. Was that right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Yes, so we do, and this does depend on the designers. Some that we've worked with for a while, we can kind of give them rough, loose, bubbly diagrams, and they can take it from there. And other designers, we really have to pretty much lay it out for them, and
Yeah.
then they're just literally putting in the lines and drafting it up.
Mhm.
So, like I mentioned, we use our iPads, and we use an app called Morpholio Trace.
Mhm.
And that's where we're able to sketch on to like aerial images or site plans or whatever we're given, to be able to hand that over to the designer that we're working with. We do walk through our thoughts as well. We use a platform, we use Slack. So we'll like take little videos and kind of point and say, this is what we're thinking here and here. And if you have thoughts here, this is what our thoughts were. So that's our method of communication that way. And then in terms of what technologies our designers are using, I think we're unique in that we don't require the designers to use like AutoCAD or Structure Studios. Like they can be using whatever technology they're comfortable with to draft up the design.
Mhm.
So I honestly I don't know CAD. I don't know anything outside of that Morpholio trace, and like I learned hand rendering. So I'm
Yeah.
doing all my thoughts that way, but the people that we're communicating with kind of draft it up in whatever software they're using.
So sorry to interrupt. Do you have a standardized deliverable then for your 2D documents that you hand over to contractors?
So,
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
oh no, I was gonna say yes, but it's gonna look a little different depending on which designer we have do it. So we
Gotcha.
definitely make sure they have like the title and all the information that we need. Like why am I blanking? Title bar.
Yeah,
Thank
that
you.
sounds right.
Like,
That sounds right.
why am I blanking on what that's called?
A
Title
Um,
block,
legend,
title block.
Thank you,
title
title
block.
block. Yes. So we make sure that that's all like same across the board. But in terms of how the design looks, that varies widely because the softwares are different and there's different plant symbols for different ones. And but I think the point is just to communicate your intent. And so with your designer that you're hiring, whatever you can do to help communicate the intent to them, and then their drawing communicates that to the client, I think would be the most key thing to focus in on. Is that helpful, Jordan?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Let's
Do you have
yeah, thank you for that. Let's give Joan a chance here. Joan, you're up next.
Hello. Yes, I'm getting ready to start a business and put up a website. Um, I've designed some gardens around my house. I'm as a student, I have some designs that never were actually materialized. What kind of visuals can I put up on my site to say, here I am, this is what I can do if
Yeah.
I haven't done anything yet?
I would say work with whatever you've got. So whether that's, even just photos on your phone of finished product, or in the beginning we had a lot of design plans, so we would just show our plans, or if it's just stock photos that represent the idea, and then later on you're able to switch that out for a finished project picture. I would say just kind of work with what you've got, and you can improve upon that. I wouldn't necessarily worry too much about it in the beginning. But I know that that can be tough because people want to see your portfolio and they want to know your work. But if you can gather images that kind of represent that, I think that could be helpful for you, Joan.
I have a comment on this too.
I would just let
Let me
me
let
in.
me let me jump in, Joan.
Okay.
I have good news for you. They're only interested this much in your portfolio, and they're interested that much in their job. So what I found over the years is that all my efforts to kind of prove how wonderful we were was not all that interesting to them. And that it took very little to convince them that I was worthy of hire. And it was far, far more important for me to do what Marin and her company does so well, which is to start asking questions about their property and their project and their dreams. So I totally agree. Any and everything you do, your own garden at your own house is candidates to put on your website. Something you imagined in your mind that you were going to do for a friend or for a relative that you designed on paper. That goes up on your website too. Whatever you've got. And that'll evolve over time and you'll pull stuff off of it and put new stuff in its place. But you don't need to worry too much if you concentrate on your customers' needs first. And
Well,
then,
absolutely, and that's the way I approach things now, sort of for free with the Environmental Commission in town.
yeah.
But the other thing I was thinking of doing was putting up photographs with a banner saying, "These are my favorite public gardens."
Oh, yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
this is what I'm aiming for.
Yeah. I ended up taking pictures of other companies' work and said, these are examples of things that I think are great ideas. And I can combine them together in something brand new for you. So, yeah. Basically, you want to just feed the flames of enthusiasm about transforming their property and getting lots of ideas out out there to do that with is wonderful. Let's hear from Jennifer. Jennifer, you made a comment, but
Yeah,
let
I
me
just made a
give you the
comment.
floor.
Everything you said about your first year in business was so helpful. I'm about 4 or 5 months in, and yeah, I have panic moments. So, um,
And you're not
but
alone. You're not alone,
yes,
right?
that is really helpful to hear. But this whole session has been great. So, thank you for sharing your experience, Marin, and talking about your company.
That's great. Thank you for
Yeah,
saying that.
of course. I think again, the first year, and I had a mentor told me the first 3 years are the hardest. And we're just, again, I'm still, I feel like new-ish to the running a business. It's been 3.5 years, so I definitely don't know everything, but all I know is that first year can be a roller coaster and you're not alone. And you can, I would say, build your community as much as possible to have other people that you can rely on that way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. I'm working on a project for friends pro bono. They have like an acre of land, but they want to use it for events, and eventually there'll be a sign that says designed. But they are also small business owners, and they're like, this is how it's going to work. You're going to do this for us, and then you're going to get referrals and you'll get signed. Like they're so confident about it, and having those people
Yeah.
in your
Yeah.
world that are like, it will be fine. We are on the other side. We know how this works. Just keep going is super helpful. So,
Yeah. No,
your
that
work is
opportunity is
beautiful too.
that project you've got, Jennifer, is golden. It may be pro bono, but it's still golden. Getting something in the ground, your ideas manifested in some way that is like having a big neon sign flashing. So it's going to vault you into a new place for sure. Let's see. Uh,
I think Heather has her hand raised.
oh, my apologies. Heather, before we go to you, I think Shannon, Ted, was that Shannon we just heard from? Okay, go ahead. Heather, go ahead.
Shannon, if you want to chime in, I've already spoken, if you're still there.
Yeah, she
Oh,
can,
no,
we
I
have enough
didn't.
time.
Okay. Yeah.
I did not raise my hand. Go ahead.
Well,
Okay.
she just
Yeah,
put
you put it in the chat.
something in the chat that I wanted to give her a chance to say. But go ahead, Heather.
Okay, I just had yet another question. So I'm getting a bunch of jobs and I don't want all the jobs that I'm getting. And I see that, Marin, you guys are working on, like larger states and they look, fairly well off. How do you make that jump from getting these smaller jobs where it's like it's not even a complete overhaul, it's just at a different tier, and I would like to move up a tier. Do you have any suggestions on how to sort of make that movement up?
Mm, yeah, that's super tricky, Heather, because I feel
Mhm.
like some of that comes with time, like, but
Fair.
also some of it comes with your branding and your marketing and how you're presenting yourself. And then another piece of that comes from the other relationships you can leverage. So a lot of these jobs that you were seeing in the portfolio and that presentation that Jerry put together were coming from contractors who are
Mhm.
working with those types of clients. And so some of it's just how you position yourself, but some of it's having relationships with others who are in that realm and work with that same type of client and kind of wedging yourself in there and saying, "Hey, like I'm here too, and I'm happy to help with whatever you need."
That's a really great point because, Jerry, I know that you love referrals, and that is how I get like 98% of my business. And they're all here, right? And so it's like getting that jump sort of out of
Yeah.
the bubble is something to do. Yeah.
Well, that is the growing pains of a small business. So you have nothing, no connections, scratch, and then you get a few, and then you have this ongoing cycle between being way too busy or being terrified that you don't have enough work. And I've read that. I'm 50 years into it. So I've seen all these cycles come. And so I think for a designer, for garden designer, I was a full service landscape operation. So we had a number of revenue sources. And we started out as humbly as you could be. But for a designer, I think the evolution is to build up a clientele large enough where you can start to select your jobs. Now, Marin's got a little bit different situation because if she gets lots of extra work, she's got a mechanism to filter that to get other people involved, which is a very interesting business model. We haven't heard that before. But let's say you are a sole proprietor or two-person partnership and you don't have that same relationship. What you're wanting to do, presumably, is to pick jobs that have fit at least two criteria, right? One, it's going to be financially beneficial to you. Number two, it's interesting to you creatively and artistically. And maybe even three, you would enjoy working with those people. So when I worked for 1 year while I was going through Hort School with a contractor in Santa Barbara. And he had a customer he hated, absolutely hated, that was in Montecito, which is basically the Beverly Hills of Santa Barbara. And that customer, we did work for him, and it was hell on wheels the whole time. And when he came back to Dell for another job, I told Dell, why are you going to take this work? He says, because I'm charging them double for it. If they want, well, I'm willing to go through this double. Well, if it were me, it wasn't worth the heartache. It wasn't worth all the emotional turmoil. I would rather have peace of mind than the extra money. So you want to get yourself in a position where you pick your jobs. You select them. And also you want to be able to increase your fees, so that it filters out, looky-loos that you're not really able to service, you know. But it is a evolutionary thing. Um, would anyone else want to say something about that? Yeah, go ahead, Shannon.
Hi. I want to say that at least I have found I've been in this business for 40 years.
Bless
And
your heart.
yeah, it's I'm going to say that it's kind of challenging for women.
It is.
Jerry might have had a different experience, being male. It is kind of hard being taken seriously when you compare what men get to do and what women have to do to prove themselves. It's always going to be a problem. The way that I elevated my jobs from little things to big things and, really high-end installations was aligning myself with landscapers. And that has been said. Landscapers tend to be the ones that have the big clients because they're mowing, they're out there doing things that everybody desperately needs. Everybody does not desperately need a designer, but they need a landscaper. And so to be connected to one of those guys or actual multiple is better because they don't always have work for you, but they can take you places you can't get yourself. And many of them don't want to design, or they're afraid to design. They don't know how to design. It's just not what they do. They like to do stuff. They like to dig holes. They like to mow,
They're builders. They're builders.
Yeah. And so if you can get out there and socialize, that's not entirely comfortable. It's not comfortable for me, but, go to association meetings, go to events,
Trade groups.
seminars, trade groups, right? And get to know people a little bit. You are going to find someone who says, yeah, I want a designer. I could use a designer, and start that way. And you will find that they take you places.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Thank you for that, Shannon.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that's really, really helpful. And all of the experience you have is exceedingly valuable to what we're doing here for sure. I think I would add to what you're saying. If you communicate with contractors, of which I was one, and I did find a woman, Debbie Snyder Brooks, who ended up moving to Oregon, but we worked with her for a decade and we worked very closely with her and loved working with her. And she sent us a lot of business and we sent her a lot of business. So the point I wanted to make is that if you can convince these outside companies that you will work with them in a mutually beneficial fashion, you will win their support. It can't be one way. I need you to do this for me. That won't work. But if you can convince them and say, it's a back scratching thing, right? So I clients that I acquire, I will do my darndest to get them to hire you to do the installations. I will brag about you. I will say good things about you. I will, and vice versa. That's the relationship you're looking for, is a mutual beneficial relationship. Would you agree with that, Shannon?
Totally. And
Yeah.
a lot of honesty, like just a couple of days ago, a landscaper sent me to one of his clients. I went there not knowing what to expect. The client was very, very angry at the landscaper. Big surprise to me. Wanted to fire the landscaper. I was like, what is going on?
Oh, gee.
And so, I had to go to 100% honest, like, whoa, sorry, I'm independent. I don't know what happened to you guys. I'll talk to him and I'll get back to you. And I got an email a couple of days ago on July 4th, actually, that said, from the client, said, we want to hire you independently. We have another guy who's going to do the installation. Okay, well, I got sent to that client from a landscaper, and like Jerry says, you gotta watch each other's back. So I called the landscaper and I said, here's the problem. This is what happened. The guy actually wants to hire me. What do you want me to do? Whatever you want me to do. If you don't want me to work for the guy, cool. And he said, thank you so much for your honesty. I'm going to call and talk to him, but if it doesn't work out, you have my blessing. Go ahead. So he knows I didn't operate behind his back. I didn't snatch someone. I didn't,
Yeah.
And just like Jerry says, if one guy gives you a job, you don't bring in another landscaper and have them work in that same community without permission from the landscaper, and you give, if someone gives you a job, then, and one comes up that you need a landscaper for, then you say, I owe Joe Schmo a job. Let me ask him if he wants to do that. and it's a back and forth thing that builds trust. So anyway, that's been said, but
Yeah, that's good points altogether. And then we'll just kind of finish with a comment here. I think the bottom line is trust. I really think that in the world of business, it's human beings doing things together. In the end, I really hate that expression is, just business. So that means you can get away with all sorts of immoral shenanigans. That's not how businesses are sustainable. Real businesses in any given community are sustainable because of trust relationships. And that's why I've always thought that the mutual benefit concept worked not only in this relationship, but with your clients too. Both of us are going to benefit from this thing we're going to do together. You're going to help support my family and my business through the income we're going to earn from this. And I'm going to help make your lives so much better by beautifying your surroundings and bringing nature into your family life. That idea. That's what's sustainable, not taking advantage or trying to get leverage to get more out of the relationship than the other party. So anyhow, I think that's a good thought to end on. Again, Marin, thank you so much for your time. It's very, very generous of you. Thank you guys for coming and bringing questions and your energy and your thoughts to what we're doing. And we'll have another one in August. And I'm grateful to all of you guys and have a good month. Take care.
Thank you, Jerry. It was a
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Yeah, all the
You,
best.
Marin.
Thank you, Jerry and Marin.
Bye, guys.
See you, Julie.
Bye-bye.